The void of space stretched endlessly in all directions, broken only by distant stars that burned like cold diamonds against the black. In this remote sector, where few ships dared to venture, two very different vessels were about to meet for the first time. The Zephyrian reconnaissance fleet moved through space with the confidence of a species that had conquered 17 worlds. Their ships gleamed with polished metal hulls and energy fields that rippled like water. At the center of the formation, the command vessel Stellar Fang cut through space with deadly grace. On its bridge, Commander Velthar stood watching the main display with his 4 eyes focused on a single point of light. "Commander, we have detected an unknown vessel at coordinate 749, reported Science Officer Kethren, his tentacles dancing across the control panel. "The ship appears to be of alien design. We have never seen anything like it in our databases." Velthar's mandibles clicked together in what passed for a smile among his people. "Another primitive species wandering into our territory? How convenient. What can you tell me about their vessel?" Kethren studied his readings carefully. "The ship is roughly 300 meters in length. It appears to be constructed of basic metal alloys. Energy output is minimal. I detect approximately 200 life forms aboard. Commander, this vessel poses no threat to our fleet." The unknown ship drifted slowly through space, its hull scarred and weathered from what looked like years of service. Painted on its side in faded letters were the words USS Dakota. The vessel appeared to be nothing more than an old patrol ship, perhaps sent out to explore the edges of its species' territory. On the bridge of the Dakota, Captain Jake Miller sat in his command chair, watching the alien ship's approach on his main screen. His weathered face showed no emotion as he studied the enemy formation. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with the quiet efficiency of veterans who had seen too much combat. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple alien vessels," reported Lieutenant Amy Foster from the communications station. "They're scanning us right now. Deep-level scans, sir. They're trying to get a complete picture of our ship and crew." Miller nodded slowly. "Let them look, Lieutenant. Make sure our stealth protocols are active. Want them to see exactly what we want them to see." "Yes, sir." All false readings are in place. They're getting standard outputs for an old Earth Patrol vessel. At the engineering station, Chief Engineer Pete Collins monitored his displays with the same calm expression as his captain. The readings showed a ship that was barely holding together, powered by outdated fusion reactors and armed with primitive kinetic weapons. Anyone looking at those readings would see a vessel that posed no threat to a modern military force. The truth was very different. "Captain, the aliens are moving into an intercept course," announced Lieutenant Rick Stone from the tactical station. 6 vessels in total. The largest one appears to be their command ship. Miller studied the approaching aliens on his screen. "What do you think, Rick? Standard first contact scenario." Stone's fingers moved over his controls, gathering data on the alien ships. "Looks like it, sir. They're positioning themselves for a show of force. Classic intimidation pattern. They want us to know who's in charge before they make contact." On the Stellar Fang, Commander Velthar watched as his fleet moved into attack formation around the human vessel. The alien ship made no attempt to flee or call for help. It simply continued on its course, as if it had not noticed the Zephyrian fleet at all. "Typical behavior for a primitive species," Velthar said to his bridge crew. "They probably do not even understand what our ships are capable of." "Kethren, what is the status of your deep scan?" "Almost complete, Commander." "The alien vessel is exactly what it appears to be. An old military ship with basic weapons and minimal shielding. Their technology appears to be several centuries behind our own." Velthar's confidence grew with each passing moment. This would be another easy conquest for the Zephyrian Empire. The aliens would surrender quickly once they understood the hopelessness of their situation. Then his fleet could deliver them to the processing centers where they would be evaluated for potential use as slave labor. "Open a communication channel," Velthar ordered. "Let us introduce ourselves to these new subjects of the Empire." Communication system activated, sending a signal toward the human ship. The message was transmitted in the standard Zephyrian format, accompanied by translation protocols that would allow the aliens to understand the words even if they had never encountered Zephyrian language before. On the Dakota's bridge, Amy Foster looked up from her station. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the lead alien vessel. The Universal Translator is processing it now. Put it on screen, Lieutenant." The main display flickered and the image of Commander Velthor appeared. His alien features were both fascinating and terrifying to human eyes. 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on his face, mandibles that clicked when he spoke, and skin that seemed to shift color with his emotions. "Attention, unknown vessel," Velthor's voice came through the speakers with mechanical precision. "You have entered territory claimed by the Zephyrian Empire. By order of the High Command, you will power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Your ship and crew will be taken for evaluation and processing. Comply immediately or face the consequences." Captain Miller listened to the message without changing expression. Around him, his crew continued their work as if they had heard nothing unusual. The bridge remained quiet, except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. "Well," Miller said finally, "that's about what I expected. Amy, prepare a response. Tell them we're a peaceful exploration vessel from Earth, and we're willing to discuss the situation." "Yes, sir. Shall I mention our defensive capabilities?" Miller's lips curved into a slight smile. "Not yet, Lieutenant. Let's see how far they want to push this." The stage was set for humanity's first contact with the Zephyrian Empire, though neither side yet understood just how dramatically this encounter would change both their futures. Science Officer Catherine stared at his display screen in complete silence. The data from the deep scan of the human vessel scrolled past his 4 eyes, but something was wrong. Very wrong. The numbers did not make sense. Commander Catherine called out, his voice carrying a note of confusion that had not been there before. "I need to run the scan again. There appears to be some kind of error in our equipment." Commander Velthor turned away from the main screen where he had been watching. "The human ship. What kind of error, Science Officer?" "The power readings are inconsistent. One moment the alien vessel shows minimal energy output. The next moment, I detect massive power spikes that disappear before I can analyze them properly. It is as if their ship is hiding something from our scanners." Velthor's mandibles clicked. In annoyance, primitive species do not possess technology capable of fooling Zephyrian sensors. Run a complete diagnostic on all scanning equipment, and then perform the scan again. While the aliens struggled with their confusing readings, the crew of the USS Dakota continued their careful performance. In the engineering section deep within the ship, Chief Engineer Pete Collins monitored a dozen different displays that showed the true status of their vessel. The Dakota was not the aging patrol ship it appeared to be, hidden beneath layers of false hull plating. In camouflage systems was a prototype warship that represented the cutting edge of human military technology. The ship's true power core could generate enough energy to supply a small city. Its weapon systems were capable of destroying entire fleets. Its defensive capabilities were beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. But for now, all of that remained. "Hidden engineering to bridge," Collins said into his communication device. "The masking systems are holding steady, Captain. The aliens are seeing exactly what we want them to see. Though I have to say, they're being pretty thorough with their scans." Captain Miller's voice came back through the speaker. "Any risk of them breaking through our deception? Not with their current technology level, sir. But they're persistent. They've run the same scan 4 times in the last 10 minutes. On the bridge, Miller exchanged a look with his first officer, Commander Kate Adams. She had been reviewing tactical data since the alien ships first appeared, and her expression was grim. "Captain, I've been analyzing their ship designs," Adams said quietly. "These aren't exploration vessels. Every ship in that formation is built for war. Heavy armor, multiple weapon systems, and what looks like troop transport capability." Miller nodded. "Figured as much from their opening message. They're not here to make friends, Kate." At the communications station, Lieutenant Amy Foster was monitoring alien transmissions between the ships. Her translation equipment was picking up fragments of their conversations, and what she heard made her blood run cold. "Captain, I'm intercepting communications between the alien vessels. They're discussing processing centers and slave labor evaluation. They're planning to take our entire crew prisoner." The bridge fell silent for a moment. Every person present understood what that meant. The aliens were not interested in peaceful first contact. They saw humanity as nothing more than potential slaves to be captured and used. "Any word from Earth Command?" Miller asked. "Negative, sir. We're too far out for real-time communication. Any message would take weeks to reach home." Miller made his decision, and we handle this ourselves. "Continue monitoring their communications. I want to know everything they're planning." Back on the Zephyrian command ship, Kethrin completed his 5th scan of the human vessel. The results were the same as before, a mixture of readings that should have been impossible. Sometimes the ship appeared to be falling apart. Other times, brief flashes of energy suggested technology far beyond anything in Zephyrian databases. "Commander, I have completed multiple scans of the alien vessel. The results are highly unusual." Velthor approached the science station, his 4 eyes focused on the displays. "Explain." "The ship's hull composition contains materials I cannot identify. The armor appears to be a basic metal alloy, but my deep scans suggest it may be some kind of composite material with properties I do not understand. The power readings fluctuate wildly, as if the ship contains multiple energy sources that activate and deactivate randomly." "What about their weapons?" Catherine's tentacles moved nervously over his controls. "That is where the readings become truly strange, Commander. Most scans show basic kinetic weapons, simple projectile launchers that would barely scratch our hull plating. But occasionally I detect energy signatures that suggest weapons of incredible power." Velthar studied the data himself, his confidence beginning to waver for the first time since the encounter began. "Could they have some form of stealth technology?" "It is possible, but Commander, no known species possesses technology advanced enough to fool our sensors to this degree. The Zephyrian Empire has conquered 17 worlds. We've encountered every type of defensive system in this region of space." The bridge crew of the Stellar Fang exchanged uncertain looks. They had expected this to be a simple capture mission against a primitive species. Now they were faced with readings they could not explain, and technology they did not understand. "Tactical." Officer Velthar called out, "What is your assessment of the alien vessel's combat capabilities?" Tactical Officer Render studied his displays carefully before responding. "Based on standard readings, the alien ship poses no threat to our fleet. Their weapons appear primitive, and their defenses are minimal. However, if Science Officer Kethrin's anomalous readings are accurate, we may be facing something far more dangerous than we initially believed." Velthar's skin color shifted to a darker shade, indicating his growing concern. "Recommendations. I suggest we contact High Command immediately and request reinforcements. If this species possesses advanced stealth technology, they may have other capabilities we have not yet discovered." The decision was not an easy one for Velthar. Requesting reinforcements would suggest that he could not handle a single alien vessel with his entire reconnaissance fleet. Such a report would not reflect well on his command abilities. But the strange readings from the human ship continued to worry him. "Very well, communications. Open a priority channel to High Command. Inform them that we have encountered an unknown species with potentially advanced technology. Request immediate backup." As the message raced through space toward the Zephyrian home systems, both fleets continued their careful dance. The aliens grew more suspicious with each passing moment, while the humans maintained their deception, waiting to see how far the situation would escalate before they were forced to reveal their true nature. The emergency signal from Commander Velthar reached the Zephyrian High Command within hours. In the massive war room of the Imperial Fleet headquarters, Admiral Zixstar reviewed the transmission with growing interest. The report spoke of an adult unknown alien species with possible advanced stealth technology, but what caught the Admiral's attention was something else entirely. An entire reconnaissance fleet requesting backup for a single alien vessel? Admiral Zixstar spoke to his aide, Subcommander Keterin. "Either Commander Velthor has lost his nerve, or this human species is more interesting than we first believed." Keterin studied the data transmission carefully. "Admiral, the sensor readings are highly unusual. The alien vessel appears to be using some form of technology that interferes with our scanning systems. Perhaps Commander Velthor is being cautious." Cautious or not, the Zephyrian Empire does not send dreadnoughts to deal with single patrol ships. However, this situation presents an opportunity. If these humans do possess advanced technology, we need to capture it intact. Admiral Zixtar made his decision quickly. Prepare the Void Render for immediate departure. Full battle configuration. I want our most experienced crew aboard. The Void Render was the pride of the Zephyrian fleet, a massive dreadnought capable of destroying entire planets. Its weapons could crack the surface of a world, and its shields could withstand the combined firepower of a dozen enemy fleets. In the 200 years since its construction, no enemy had ever survived an encounter with a great ship. Admiral, with respect, is the Void Render not excessive force for dealing with a single alien vessel? Keterin asked carefully. Perhaps. But if these humans have technology we do not understand, I prefer to approach them from a position of overwhelming strength. Better to use too much force than too little. 3 days later, the massive dreadnought emerged from hyperspace near the location where the USS Dakota continued its standoff with the Zephyrian reconnaissance fleet. The Void Render was a terrifying sight, stretching over 2 kilometers in length and bristling with enough weapons to level a continent. On the bridge of the Dakota, the crew watched as the massive alien ship took position at the center of the enemy formation. Captain Miller studied the newcomer on his main screen, noting the heavy armor and the dozens of weapon ports along its hull. That's their heavy hitter, Commander Kate Adams observed from her position beside the captain's chair. Looks like they decided to take us seriously. About time, Miller replied. I was beginning to think they didn't consider us a threat. Dr. Helen Ward, the ship's xenobiologist, had been studying the alien transmissions since the first contact. She approached the captain with a datapad full of analysis. Captain, I've been monitoring their communications and studying their behavior patterns. The Zephyrians operate under a very specific cultural system. They see every encounter as either conquest or surrender. There's no middle ground in their thinking. Miller nodded. So they're not interested in peaceful coexistence, not based on what I've observed. They view other species as either useful slaves or obstacles to be eliminated. The fact that they've brought in a dreadnought suggests they're preparing for the elimination option. At the tactical station, Lieutenant Rick Stone was running combat simulations based on the alien ship configurations. His preliminary results were troubling. Captain, that dreadnought is heavily armed. I count at least 40 main weapon systems, and enough secondary guns to outfit a small fleet. If they decide to attack, they're going to come at us with everything they have. Can our defenses handle it? Stone smiled grimly. Sir, they have no idea what they're dealing with. But we're going to have to drop the masquerade if we want to survive what's coming. On the Void Render, Admiral Zixtar stood on the bridge studying the human vessel through the main display. The small ship looked even more insignificant compared to his massive dreadnought. But the sensor readings continued to show the same anomalous data that had confused Commander Velthor. Science Officer, what can you tell me about the alien vessel? Science Officer Mortek had been analyzing the sensor data since their arrival. Admiral, the readings are unlike anything in our databases. The ship appears to be constructed of primitive materials, but our deep scans suggest the presence of technology far beyond what should be possible for such a basic vessel. Explain. The hull plating shows as simple metal alloys, but energy patterns suggest some form of advanced composite material. The power core readings fluctuate between minimal output and energy levels that would power our entire fleet. Most disturbing of all, I occasionally detect weapon signatures that suggest destructive capability beyond our current understanding. Zixtar's expression grew serious. In his long career, he had never encountered a species that could confuse Zephyrian sensors to this degree. Either the humans possessed technology that defied current scientific understanding, or they were using some form of deception that was equally impressive. Tactical assessment. Based on standard readings, the alien vessel poses no threat to our fleet. However, if the anomalous readings represent actual capabilities, we may be facing a ship that could threaten even the Void Render. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. No ship in the known galaxy could threaten a Zephyrian dreadnought. The idea that a single alien vessel might possess such power was almost unthinkable. Admiral Commander Velthor's voice came through the communication system. The human vessel is responding to our presence. They're transmitting a message. Put it through. The main screen flickered and Captain Miller's image appeared. Did his calm expression and steady gaze immediately impressed the Zephyrian officers. This was not the face of a primitive being overwhelmed by superior technology. This was the face of a military commander who knew exactly what he was doing. I am Captain Jake Miller of the Earth vessel Dakota. I assume you're the commander of the large ship that just arrived. I have a message for you and your fleet. Admiral Zixstar stepped forward. I am Admiral Zixstar of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet. You will surrender your vessel immediately and prepare to be boarded. Your species will be evaluated for potential service to the Empire. Miller's expression did not change. I'm afraid that's not going to happen, Admiral. However, I'm prepared to make you a counter-rover. Leave this system immediately and never return. Do this, and your ships will be allowed to depart unharmed. The bridge of the void render erupted in shocked silence. Single human, commanding. A ship barely 1/10 the size of their dreadnought had just threatened the most powerful fleet in Zephyrian space. You dare threaten the Zephyrian Empire? Zixstar's voice carried deadly menace. I'm not threatening anyone, Admiral. I'm offering you a chance to avoid a mistake that your species will regret for generations. The choice is yours. The transmission ended, leaving the Zephyrian fleet to contemplate the impossible situation they now faced. Admiral Zixstar stared at the blank screen where Captain Miller's transmission had ended. The silence on the bridge of the void render stretched for long moments as the Zephyrian officers tried to process what they had just witnessed. A human. Commander had threatened their entire fleet and acted as if he held all the advantages in this encounter. Admiral Tactical Officer Nexvar spoke carefully. How do you wish to respond to their ultimatum? Zixstar's skin shifted to a deep red, color indicating his rage. No primitive species gives ultimatums to the Zephyrian Empire. We will show these humans the price of their arrogance. All ships, move to attack formation. Prepare to fire on my command. The massive dreadnought's engines rumbled to life as it positioned itself for the attack. Around it, the smaller ships of the reconnaissance fleet spread out to create a firing pattern that would surround the human vessel. Within minutes, 7 Zephyrian warships had the USS Dakota trapped in a crossfire formation. On the Dakota's bridge, the crew watched the alien ships take their positions with professional calm. Captain Miller sat in his command chair, studying the tactical display that showed the enemy formation in detail. They're not wasting any time, Commander Kate, Adams observed. Full attack formation. They mean business. So do we, Miller replied. He activated the ship's internal communication system. All hands, this is the captain. Battle stations. This is not a drill. Prepare for combat operations. Throughout the ship, the crew moved with practiced efficiency. Tactical Officer Sam Parker began bringing the Dakota's true armament online. The ship's external appearance remained unchanged, but hidden beneath the false hull plating. Systems that defied conventional physics began to charge with enormous power. Navigator Roy Chen plotted evasive maneuvers while maintaining their current position. His job was to make the ship appear helpless while keeping it in optimal position for what was about to happen. Captain, Lieutenant Alex Turner called from the defensive systems station. All shields are ready. The aliens have no idea what they're about to hit. In the engineering section, Chief Engineer Pete Collins monitored the ship's true power systems. The fusion reactors that the aliens detected were real, but they were only backup systems. The Dakota's main power source was something far more advanced, a technology that could manipulate the fundamental forces of space and time itself. Engineering. To bridge, Collins reported. All systems are green. Ready to drop the masquerade whenever you give the word, Captain. Back on the Void Render, Admiral Zixstar prepared to demonstrate the full might of Zephyrian military power. The Dreadnought's main guns were capable of cracking the surface of a planet. Secondary weapons could destroy entire city blocks with a single shot. Against a single human patrol ship, it was massive overkill. Target the alien vessel, Zixstar commanded. I want a demonstration of power that will be remembered by their entire species. Fire a warning shot across their bow. If they do not surrender immediately, we will destroy them. The Void Render's primary weapon system charged with energy that made the space around it shimmer. The massive gun turret rotated toward the human ship, and a bolt of pure energy lanced through space. Passing close enough to the Dakota to cook the air around its hull, the energy beam was visible for thousands of kilometers. A brilliant line of destruction that could have vaporized the human ship if it had connected. It was meant to show the aliens exactly what they were facing on the Dakota's bridge. The crew watched the energy beam pass by their ship without even flinching. Captain Miller turned to his tactical officer. Rick analysis of their weapons. Lieutenant Rick Stone studied his displays. It's plasma-based energy weapons, Captain. Powerful enough to destroy most ships in a single hit. They're using technology that's probably 1,000 years ahead of what they think we have, but not ahead of what we actually have. Stone smiled grimly. Not even close, sir. Their weapons are impressive for their time period, but they're still working within the normal laws of physics. We stopped doing that a long time ago. Admiral Zixstar waited for the human response to his demonstration. He expected immediate surrender or at least some sign of fear from the alien crew. Instead, the human ship simply continued on its previous course as if nothing had happened. Admiral Science Officer Mortek reported, "The alien vessel shows no change in energy output or course. They appear to be ignoring our warning shot. Perhaps they did not understand the demonstration. Fire another shot, closer this time." The second energy beam passed even closer to the Dakota, close enough that its heat should have damaged the ship's hull. Again, the human vessel showed no response. Captain Miller had seen enough. The aliens had demonstrated their hostile intentions. Clearly, they had fired weapons at his ship, even if they were intended as warning shots. By the rules of engagement established by Earth Command, the Dakota was now free to defend itself with full force. "All hands, prepare for combat," Miller announced. "We are no longer operating under peaceful contact protocols. These aliens have fired on an Earth vessel. The gloves are coming off." He turned to his engineering officer. "Pete, drop all stealth systems. I want them to see what they're really dealing with." "Yes, sir. Dropping the masquerade now." Throughout the Dakota, systems that had been hidden for days suddenly came online. The ship's external appearance began to change as false hull plating retracted to reveal the true nature of the vessel beneath. Energy fields that had been carefully masked now blazed with power that made space itself bend around the ship. The transformation was visible to every sensor in the Zephyrian fleet. Science Officer Mortek watched his displays in growing horror as the readings from the human ship changed completely. "Admiral," he called out, his voice shaking, "the alien vessel is transforming. Power output is increasing exponentially. Energy signatures are beyond anything in our databases." Admiral Zixstar stared at the main screen as the human ship revealed its true form. The Dakota no longer looked like an aging patrol vessel. It now appeared as something that challenged every assumption about physics and engineering that the Zephyrians possessed. "What is that thing?" he whispered. Captain Miller's voice came through the communication system one final time. "Admiral Zixstar, you have fired weapons at a vessel of the Earth Defense Force. This action constitutes an act of war against humanity. You have 10 seconds to power down your weapons and withdraw from this system. This is your final warning." The countdown began, and for the first time in his military career, Admiral Zixstar found himself facing an enemy that he did not understand and could not predict. The 10 seconds felt like an eternity as he struggled to decide whether to retreat or continue the attack against a foe that might be far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. The 10 seconds passed in silence. Admiral Zixstar stood frozen on the bridge of the Void Render, staring at the transformed human vessel. His tactical officers waited for orders, while the science station continued reporting impossible readings from the alien ship. When the countdown ended, Captain Miller's voice returned to the communication channel. "Time's up, Admiral." What happened next would be remembered in Zephyrian history as the moment their empire learned that they were not the most advanced species in the galaxy. The USS Dakota fired a single shot. The weapon that emerged from the human ship was unlike anything the Zephyrians had ever encountered. It was not a beam of energy or a physical projectile. Instead, it was something that twisted space itself. creating a wave of distorted reality that moved toward the alien fleet at impossible speed. The wave struck the reconnaissance ship that had first detected the Dakota. For a moment, the Zephyrian vessel simply stopped existing in normal space. Its hull became transparent, then shifted through colors that had no names. The ship's weapons powered down automatically as its crew found themselves unable to move or think clearly. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the effect ended. The reconnaissance ship reappeared in normal space, completely undamaged but totally powerless. Every system on the vessel had been shut down. The crew was unharmed, but their ship was as helpless as a piece of floating debris. "What did they do to us?" Commander Velter's voice came through the communication system, filled with confusion and fear. "All our systems are offline. Weapons, engines, life support, everything is dead." On the Dakota's bridge, Chief Tactical Officer Sam Parker checked his targeting systems. "First target neutralized, Captain. Weapon system is ready for the next shot." Captain Miller studied the remaining alien ships on his tactical display. "Target the next reconnaissance vessel, Sam. Same settings. I want them to understand that this is not luck or some kind of trick." The second shot from the Dakota had the same effect as the first. Another Zephyrian ship found itself caught in the wave of twisted space-time, emerging moments later as a powerless hulk drifting in space. Its crew was alive, but their vessel was completely helpless. Admiral Zixstar watched in growing horror as his fleet was systematically disabled by weapons that should not have been possible to create. All ships opened fire on the human vessel. Full power, all weapons. The remaining 5 Zephyrian ships unleashed everything they had. Energy beams capable of destroying planets lanced through space toward the Dakota. Missile systems that could level continents fired their deadly cargo. The combined firepower was enough to sterilize an entire world. The weapons struck the human ship and simply disappeared. The Dakota's defensive systems absorbed the massive attack without even slowing down. Energy beams were converted into harmless light. Missiles vanished into pocket dimensions before they could detonate. The most powerful weapons in the Zephyrian arsenal had no more effect than throwing stones at a mountain. "Impossible," Science Officer Mortek whispered as he watched his readings. "Their defensive systems are absorbing energy levels that exceed our power generation capacity by orders of magnitude." Lieutenant Alex Turner monitored the defense systems from his station on the Dakota. "Captain, their attack was completely neutralized. Our shields absorbed the energy and converted it to reserve power. We're actually stronger now than we were before they fired." Miller nodded calmly. "Thank them for the energy boost, Alex." "Sam, continue with the demonstration." The third Zephyrian ship suffered the same fate as the first 2, then the fourth. Within minutes, only the massive dreadnought Voidrender remained functional, surrounded by the powerless hulks of its escort fleet. Admiral Zixstar stared at the tactical displays showing his disabled ships. In his entire military career, he had never faced defeat. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered every species it encountered through superior technology and overwhelming firepower. Now, he faced an enemy that treated his most powerful weapons like annoying insects. Admiral Tactical Officer Nexvar reported, his voice shaking, "All escort vessels are disabled. We are alone. Status of our weapons? It's fully operational, but..." "Admiral, their defensive systems absorbed our entire fleet's attack without any apparent effort. Our weapons may not be effective against their ship." Zixstar felt something he had never experienced before in combat. Fear. Not fear of death, which every warrior understood, but fear of facing an enemy so far beyond his understanding that resistance seemed meaningless. Captain Miller's voice came through the communication system again. "Admiral, your escort fleet has been disabled, but not destroyed. Your crews are unharmed. This was a demonstration of our defensive and offensive capabilities. Do you require another demonstration, or are you ready to discuss terms?" The bridge of the Voidrender fell silent. Every officer present understood that they were facing a species with technology that made their own look primitive by comparison. The humans had disabled an entire fleet without killing a single alien crew member, showing both incredible power and remarkable restraint. "What terms?" Zixstar asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Simple terms, Admiral. You will withdraw your ships from the system immediately. You will return to your empire and inform your leadership that humanity is not interested in conquest or slavery. We prefer peaceful coexistence, but we are fully capable of defending ourselves and our allies. Dr. Helen Ward stepped forward on the Dakota's bridge. Captain, I recommend we make our position completely clear. From my analysis of their culture, they only respect strength. Miller nodded and activated the communication system again. Admiral, let me be completely honest with you. The ship you are facing is one of our older patrol vessels. It was scheduled for retirement before we sent it on this mission. Our actual military fleet consists of thousands of ships, many of which make this vessel look primitive by comparison. The words hit the Zephyrian bridge crew like physical blows. If this ship, which had just disabled their entire fleet without effort, was considered obsolete by human standards, then what kind of power did humanity actually possess? Furthermore, Miller continued, Earth maintains defensive fleets around hundreds of worlds. We have colonies throughout this region of space, all of which are protected by vessels similar to or more advanced than this one. The Zephyrian Empire has two choices. You can accept peaceful coexistence with humanity, or you can face the full military might of a species that considers this ship to be outdated technology. Admiral Zixtar looked around his bridge at officers who had served with him for decades. These were warriors who had conquered worlds and destroyed entire civilizations. Now, they stared at him with expressions of shock and defeat. Admiral, Science Officer Mortek said quietly, recommend immediate withdrawal. This species possesses technology beyond our current understanding. Continued hostilities would be suicide for our empire. Zixtar made the hardest decision of his military career. Human vessel, this is Admiral Zixtar. The Zephyrian fleet will withdraw from this system immediately. We will carry your message to our high command. Wise choice, Admiral. Your disabled ships will regain power in approximately 1 hour. Use that time to consider the future relationship between our species. As the Void Render began its retreat, the crew of the USS Dakota watched the massive alien ship disappear into hyperspace, carrying with it the news that would forever change the balance of power in the galaxy. 3 weeks after the encounter, the Zephyrian High Command Assembly Hall buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from across the Empire had gathered to hear Admiral Zixtar's report about the human species. The mood was grim as news of the fleet's defeat had already spread through official channels. Admiral Zixtar stood before the assembled leadership, his once proud bearing now marked by the weight of unprecedented failure. Supreme Commander Thexrin, leader of the entire Zephyrian military, sat at the center of the semicircular chamber, his 4 eyes focused intently on the Admiral. Report, Supreme Commander Thexron commanded simply. Supreme Commander, honored. Representative Zixtar began, his voice steady, despite the magnitude of what he had to report. Our encounter with the human species has revealed a fundamental error in our understanding of this region of space. We are not the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the assembly. For generations, the Zephyrian Empire had conquered every species they encountered. The idea that another race could possess superior technology was almost unthinkable. Explain, Thexron ordered. The human vessel we encountered appeared to be a primitive patrol ship. Our sensors indicated basic technology, minimal weapons, and simple defensive systems. However, this was a deception. When the humans revealed their true capabilities, they disabled our entire fleet without destroying a single ship or harming a single crew member. Admiral Zixtar activated a holographic display showing the tactical recording of the battle. Assembled representatives watched in stunned silence as the human ship systematically neutralized 7 Zephyrian warships with weapons that defied all known laws of physics. Their defensive systems absorbed the combined firepower of our entire fleet and converted it into additional power for their ship, Zixtar continued. Their weapons manipulated space-time itself, disabling our vessels without causing any physical damage. Most concerning of all, they claimed this ship was one of their older vessels, scheduled for retirement. The assembly hall erupted in shocked discussions. Defense Minister Kolrek stood up from his seat, his skin flushed with the dark colors. That indicated extreme agitation. Are you suggesting that this single human ship is more powerful than our entire Imperial fleet? I am stating it as fact, Defense Minister. Furthermore, the human commander indicated that their species maintains defensive fleets around hundreds of worlds. If their claim is accurate, humanity possesses military capabilities that exceed our own by orders of magnitude. Supreme Commander. Dexron raised one of his 4 hands for silence. The assembly immediately quieted, waiting for his words. What did the humans demand in exchange for allowing our fleet to withdraw? They made no demands, Supreme Commander. They offered us a choice between peaceful coexistence and total destruction. The human captain emphasized that they prefer peace, but are fully capable of defending themselves and their allies. Meanwhile, in a distant sector of space, the USS Dakota continued its patrol route as if nothing had happened. Captain Jake Miller sat in his ready room, reviewing the official report he would send to Earth Command. When they reached the next communication relay, the door chimed, and Commander Kate Adams entered with a data pad in her hand. I have the final analysis of the alien technology from our encounter. Dr. Helen Ward's team has completed their evaluation. Miller looked up from his report. What's the verdict? The Zephyrians are approximately 200 years behind our current technology level. Their weapons and defenses are impressive for their time period, but they're still working within conventional physics. No manipulation of fundamental forces, no dimensional technology, no reality alteration capabilities. So they're not a threat to Earth or our colonies, not unless they develop new technology very quickly or form alliances with more advanced species. Dr. Ward believes their rigid military culture will actually work against them in developing new innovations. They're used to conquering through brute force rather than technological advancement. Miller nodded and returned to his report. The encounter had gone exactly as Earth's command protocols required. When faced with a hostile alien species, the Dakota had demonstrated human capabilities while offering peaceful alternatives. The choice of what happened next belonged to the Zephyrians. Back in the Zephyrian Assembly Hall, the debate continued for hours. Some representatives argued for immediate mobilization of the entire K-Imperial fleet to crush the human threat before it could grow. Others counseled caution, pointing out that any species capable of the technology they had witnessed could likely detect and destroy any Zephyrian attack force before it reached human space. Finally, Supreme Commander Dexron called for order and announced his decision. The Zephyrian Empire will implement immediate policy changes regarding the human species. All military vessels are ordered to maintain a minimum distance of 10 light-years from any territory claimed by humans. No Zephyrian ship will approach, scan, or make contact with human vessels without explicit authorization from this command. Defense Minister Colrex protested. Supreme Commander, this policy makes us appear weak. What will our subject species think when they learn we are avoiding contact with another race? They will think we are intelligent enough to recognize when we are outmatched, Dexron replied firmly. The Zephyrian Empire has survived for 1,000 years by knowing when to fight and when to avoid conflict. The humans have offered us peace. We will accept it. 6 months later, the effects of the encounter had spread throughout the galaxy. Word of the Zephyrian fleet's defeat traveled through unofficial channels, reaching dozens of species that had been conquered or threatened by the Empire. For the first time in generations, subject worlds began to hope that the Zephyrian dominance might not be absolute. On Earth, Admiral Frank Cooper reviewed the Dakota's mission report in his office at Fleet Command Headquarters. The encounter had provided valuable intelligence about alien species in the region, while establishing humanity's credibility as a military power. Excellent work by Captain Miller and his crew, Cooper noted in his official evaluation. First contact protocols were followed precisely. The alien species has been given a clear understanding of human capabilities while being offered peaceful alternatives. Cooper sealed the report and filed it with thousands of others from human vessels operating throughout the galaxy. The Dakota's encounter was significant, but it was not unique. Humanity had been making contact with alien species for decades, and the pattern was always the same. Other races consistently underestimated human technology and capabilities until they were forced to confront the reality of humanity's advancement. The USS Dakota continued its patrol route, ready for whatever challenges the galaxy might present. In the vast reaches of space, other human vessels carried out similar missions, quietly establishing humanity's presence and protecting Earth's growing sphere of influence. The galaxy was learning a new truth. Humanity was no longer the primitive species that had once been confined to a single world. They had become something far more powerful and far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The age of human expansion had begun, and those wise enough to accept peaceful coexistence would prosper alongside them. Those foolish enough to choose conflict would learn the same lesson the Zephyrians had. Discovered: never underestimate the humans.